strategy case presentation. Thank you to our judges, Olivier Eddy from Saskatchewan Rough Rider Football Club, AJ Miller from the Richard Ivey School of Business, Bernadette McIntyre from Wisconsin Center Authority, Glenn Pratt from the North American Indigenous Games, Marlis Taffenmeyer from the Public Service Commission, and Shannon Thompson from Certified Management Accountants of BC. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes for questions. I will show time cards at various intervals to indicate your remaining time, and will stop any speaker who exceeds the maximum time limit. No questions, comments, cell phones, or picture taking will be permitted from the audience. The audience will only be permitted to applaud following question and answer period. The audience is banned from any material that bears the name or symbol of a competing university, and we ask that the audience exit the room immediately following the Q&A period. Competitors may begin whenever you're ready. All right, good morning, Mr. Pratt. We're so excited to be here today, and on behalf of K&J Consulting, I'd like to welcome you to our presentation today on how we are going to take the North American Indigenous Games to new heights and show the best event possible. My name is Kelsey, and these are my colleagues Navina and Jasmine. So right off the bat, this is what we're going to do for you. We're going to solve your main issues of your lack of funding and the lack of accommodation for your athletes. Without these two main issues, there's no way that your games can even happen. So this is the first thing that we're going to focus on, and we feel it's crucial to having the event in the first place. So how we're going to do this is we're going to have a raise in ticket prices. We're going to partner with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. We're going to develop a corporate partnership program and approach corporate sponsors in the province of Saskatchewan. We've already gotten a lot of funding from the provincial governments and the municipal and federal governments, so we feel like this is the best way to go for you. This is going to result in a $4.1 million raise in funds, which is above your $10 million present budget. We've identified that you said that approximately $13 million would be more ideal, so we're going to try to get as close to that goal as possible for you. So I'm going to take you through where your organization currently stands. Navina is going to take you through our justification of why we came to our recommendation, and then Jasmine's going to take you through exactly how we're going to implement this plan for you starting Monday morning in the office. So we've identified the mission of the overall games to go beyond profits and improve the quality of life for Indigenous peoples by supporting self-determined sports and cultural activities which respect Indigenous distinctiveness in the entire country and the province of Saskatchewan. As for situational analysis, we have identified some weaknesses that need to be addressed immediately. First and foremost is that lack of funding. Right now you're currently at about the $8 million mark, and you need $10 million to even possibly go forward with what you're budgeted at right now. We're going to get you more than that. You have undefined sponsor benefits, so moving forward, how can you approach those sponsors? What benefits them? What is in it for them to help you? And then there are some complex government relationships going on here, and so that's why we're not necessarily going to go the route of government funding, which we've already secured some there already. As for some potential external threats, the government has given limited support in light of the grander scheme of things in comparison to other games that have happened in the past. And then the lack of the school board support is something that's completely out of your control, but we're gonna present a solution to where your athletes can be accommodated during the games. So you have some great things going on in Saskatchewan. There's really high participation rates. You have a lot of great athletes that are going to be coming here. And then there's a rich cultural village. There's a high Indigenous population in Saskatchewan, and we feel like that's really going to help the games and bring everything together to really stick with that mission. So here are your key stakeholders. This is who means the most to you. Your athletes are first and foremost who you need to focus on and really pertaining to their values. They really want the participation in the games. They want that high quality. They want the high service offerings when they get here. They want to be comfortable and have the best experience possible. The Indigenous community as a whole, not only in Saskatchewan but in our entire nation, has stakes in these games as it represents them, and we feel like that this should really be taken into consideration. The Board of Governors, they really want that high quality game, the revenue generation, to meet that 10% surplus that we have there, and we're going to do that for you. The sponsors, they want that high social impact. They want to know how their dollar is going to benefit the community and what benefits benefits come out of the games for them. And then your volunteers, they're looking for that intrinsic value to know their time and effort is being put into something that they can believe in. So we've identified some primary issues and some secondary issues. The main thing that you need right now, you need a minimum of $2 million moving forward to have the games even be made possible. The benefits is a huge thing moving forward if we're going to approach sponsors. That legacy planning with the physical monuments and also financial considerations and moving the games forward, carrying it forward in the Saskatchewan community is something that's really important. And then we really need to figure out the accommodations of the athletes once they get here. That's very important. Some secondary issues that we know need to be touched on before the beginning of the games is that enhancements of the social profile, that cultural village, and we feel like that will move forward quite nicely with the province of Saskatchewan and the community of Regina. And then the nitty-gritty logistics, that distribution, the equipment, materials, booking all your services and all the food and so on. So the growth opportunity that we see for your organization is how can Regina 2014 Local Organizing Committee ensure sufficient funds for this event while meeting the hosting standards put forward to you by the council. You have to meet all of their standards, and this is one of the challenges with the lack of funding currently. So I'll now pass this on to Nadina, who's going to justify why we came to our decisions.
Thank you, Kelsey. So, Mr. Pratt, you have done an excellent job of building yourself a platform for these games. You've put in a lot of work, and the council has commended you for your progress thus far. However, we want to keep our eyes on the big picture. Without meeting that bottom line, you cannot continue to run these games. And we feel that that is the utmost priority for you today, is funding. But we will bring it down to the basics and look at those issues such as accommodation. So going forward, we have identified a few alternatives for you. Firstly, that of funding. So you have a few different channels that you can access for that monetary support. You can look at government funding, and as it is, you have $3.5 million from provincial and federal outlets, and we feel that you have slightly exhausted these avenues. Next, you have fundraising events, and you have a 10-month timeline until the actual execution of this event. So we need to keep that in mind in addressing this alternative. Thirdly, you have corporate sponsorship, and that's another avenue which has been identified to be a bit hazy because you don't have clear benefits laid out for potential sponsors, and we feel that that is an issue that needs to be addressed going forward. So in assessing this decision, we have a few key criteria that we have looked at for you today. The first of these is a realistic timeline. So keeping that 10-month timeline in mind, we feel that we need an actionable plan for you to execute within the next 10 months to make sure that this event is exactly what you're looking for it to be. And we think that you can execute an excellent event, but this is a priority. In terms of operational feasibility, you have addressed that resources are a concern, and we want to keep this in mind and making sure that you have the human capital necessary to actually execute this plan. Thirdly, financial viability. So as I said, if we can't raise the funds necessary for this event, these games cannot continue. And we want to make sure that that happens for you so that revenue generation is of optimal importance. So in quantifying this decision, we've weighted each of these criteria, and corporate sponsorship wins out for a few different reasons. In terms of realistic timeline, we think that by defining some clear benefits for your sponsors, you will have a step much farther forward than what you have right now in terms of proposing your event to these corporate partners and actually selling it and having them secure those partnerships with you. You yourself have excellent connections in the Indigenous community, and we want to ensure that that is reflecting in your communications with these prospective partners. In terms of realistic timeline, we think that corporate sponsorship with the right team members in place will be attainable, and we'll touch on that further. Same with operational feasibility. We think that corporate sponsorship will be more attainable than a fundraising event, which 10 months is a bit too short of a timeline, and with the right professional attitude in approaching the prospective partners, corporate sponsorship will be the most doable for you going forward. So as I've mentioned, corporate sponsorship through the development of a corporate partners program is what we are suggesting for you today. So in looking at accommodation, which is the next decision that we've outlined for you, the first was that of funding and the second is accommodation, we've identified that the school boards have not been cooperating thus far in securing that space that you need to accommodate your athletes. And we think that that is a key decision to be made, is are you going to continue approaching the school board or are you going to secure a hotel for your guests? So we feel that you should ultimately continue approaching the schools, but you need an actual solid space for your guests, and you need to approach the hotels right now. And that does involve that extra $900,000 cost. So we think that incorporating that within your budget going forward is of importance as well. So looking at the criteria for this decision, and I'll run through it very quickly, is again that realistic timeline. So is this doable within 10 months? And we think that calling those hotels and securing that space is of importance today. Secondly, ease of access to your sports venues. So we want to ensure that each of your participants in the games have equal access to venues, and we feel that having them at all of the different schools is going to pose a big issue in terms of the distance that each of them have to travel to get to the games. So we want to ensure that we're mitigating that risk of dissatisfaction amongst the people that you're looking to serve. And we think that pursuing the hotel will help you achieve that. Thirdly, in terms of financial viability, again, in defining your benefits and creating a stronger platform for taking that corporate sponsorship, we think that financial viability will not be an issue. So in quantifying these decisions, as I've mentioned, pursuing hotels will be the best option for you going forward. So I'll move on to our recommendation. We will be developing a corporate sponsorship package with you should you continue to work with us. And that will be done by creating a defined sponsorship timeline as well as specific benefits for your sponsors. So even the little things like logo recognition and who gets to speak at an event, that is all the simple stuff that your sponsors look for. And that's what their dollars are tied to. We want to make sure that you're achieving that. So this ultimately will raise $1.9 million, and we have an analysis that you can ask us about later. Secondly, we will also pursue a Rough Riders partnership for you. So we think that you have the Rough Riders here, you have those connections. We think that raising that bar cannot be achieved without involving the Rough Riders and having those role models for the actual athletes at the events to look up to. Thirdly, we will increase ticket prices. So we noted that the actual ticket prices for your opening ceremonies are only $4. And we think that the value that you're providing to actual stakeholders at those events is much higher than $4. So this will lead to a $600,000 gross proceed, and we can touch on that further later on. In terms of legacy planning, you suggested to us that you'd like to have 10% of your budget set aside for a surplus, and that surplus would be invested in legacy planning. We think that that is a great idea to expand yourself beyond operations to capital. So we want to focus on that, and we think that you should approach the Saskatchewan Ministry of Economy to actually establish a monument and Indigenous sports circle, so an actual community for your athletes to engage and promote their own healthy lifestyles. So this will lead to the attainment of your legacy goals. So in terms of financial return, we've gone the finance nerdy way and conducted a bit of a present value calculation for you. So we think that the present value of this project will be approximately $3.7 million, and that will generate a return of 5% for you. But the cost associated with this campaign is quite minimal in comparison with the actual value you can generate, and the actuality of how simple it is to create those tangible benefits is astounding. So we think that the cash flow will increase just within the next 10 months, and you will be able to secure those funds. So moving forward, I'll pass it on to Jasmine to touch on how we're going to do this for you.
Thank you so much, Navia. So Mr. Pratt, so far we've told you exactly what we're going to do, and we've provided you with some justification on why we're going to do it. I'm now going to talk to you about exactly how we're going to do it within that 10-month time frame. Actually, we've provided you with a 6-month time frame because we want some room, just in case something does go a little bit long. Realistically, with planning an event such as yours with such a high profile, we do want to allow ample time for anything that does run a little bit long. So within our implementation, we've broken it up into short term, so things that we have to do Monday morning when you get right back into the office. We've also provided you with medium term, so within 2 to 3 months, these are some of the things you have to look at, and with a long term for 3 to 6 months. Our first area of implementation is the funding. So we've identified this as your burning platform currently. This is the first thing we have to address in order to ensure that all of the youth coming to the games and who are so excited to be here in Regina in July are able to attend. So the first, within a month, is development of the Corporate Partners Program. We need to hire 1 additional staff member to take on the responsibilities required of this program and approach the Saskatchewan Roughriders for a partnership program, which I'll touch on a little bit more in depth in the later slide. Within 2 to 3 months, you want to start approaching your sponsors. We know that you have approached sponsors such as the large corporations within Saskatchewan, but we believe you can go bigger. You can go national, and we can work with you further on this at a later time as well. We also believe at this time, you should inform all of the people attending your games of the slight raise in ticket prices. This is a slight risk in raising the ticket prices. However, we noted that you are not charging any of your attendees for any of the other events that you are providing for them throughout the period of your games. Within 3 to 6 months, we want to make sure that you secure your sponsorship and revise any of the agreements as needed. In terms of accommodation, we noted that this is a huge key issue currently, since all of your athletes are planning to come to Regina, however, we don't have a place for them to stay yet. You want to start obtaining hotel quotes. Currently, you've provided us with that $900,000 quote for what you believe that the hotels will cost. However, in working with the hotels and Tourism Regina, we believe that you might be able to negotiate a lower price for this. You also want to continue your consultation with the school boards. You mentioned to us that this is something that you have a plan for going forward, and we would definitely like to work with you on that as well. Within 2 to 3 months, you want to put down the deposits for the hotels to ensure that if the school board plan does not follow through, that you can still have accommodation for all of the attendees to your events. And in terms of legacy planning, you said that the theme for this year is raising the bar, and that's really what we're doing with our plan here. So within 2 to 3 months, we want to start focusing on that legacy planning, since it is such a big, important part of the North American Indigenous Games this year. So we've already budgeted within our financials 10% that can be allocated to surplus for the games. This will help you in long-term planning. This will also assist you in being able to continue the legacy within Regina and the Saskatchewan community as a whole. We believe that approaching the Ministry of Economy for partnership is a really smart way to go about doing this, since the Ministry of Economy does have very strong value alignment, and they do help fund programs for not-for-profit organizations, such as your own, and they do help with a lot of things to do with Indigenous youth participation and promotion of healthy, active lifestyle. Now, going back to touch on the Saskatchewan Roughriders proposal that we mentioned, we believe this is a great way to increase your impact and your profile within the community. This is going to build excitement about your games and build that rapport with the community as well. So we believe that a corporate partnership with the Saskatchewan Roughriders will assist in this. How we want to go about doing this for you is asking the Saskatchewan Roughriders to donate $1 from every ticket sold for their games to come into your revenues. This will lead to an approximately $300,000 increase in funds raised. We've also developed a corporate partners program for you. This will definitely help you with your attainment of your fundraising goals. We believe that by outlining the benefits clearly for all of the sponsors that you want to approach, you will be able to meet all of these goals and mitigate any risk of sponsors such as Potash Corp, who said that they wanted to know a little bit more about what you could provide for them in return. And in terms of risks and mitigation, we know we've thrown a lot at you right now, Mr. Pratt, and we know that this can be a little bit overwhelming, especially with the tight time frame, with the games coming up so quickly here in July. So the biggest risk is that you won't be able to raise enough money. This is the biggest risk because if you aren't able to raise that money, you won't be able to host the games. However, with a multi-tiered sponsorship platform, clear benefits outlined, and hiring of one additional fundraising staff member, which we have also budgeted for, you will be able to fundraise enough without a doubt. The second risk is an unaffordable accommodation. So we have dual efforts in also talking to the school boards while you also secure sponsorship to pay for hotel accommodations. And in terms of your legacy piece, the biggest risk is the denial of the Ministry of Economy partnership. However, we believe that this can be easily mitigated. So to go over everything we've told you today, we want you to raise ticket prices for your opening ceremonies, partner with the Saskatchewan Rough Riders, build the community rapport, build the excitement about your games, develop a corporate partners program, and make sure you are getting more corporate sponsorship. And this will increase your funds raised and also ensure that your games are able to go on. We'd now like to open the floor.
In terms of sort of things with the legacy aspect of how it impacts future games, how do you think sort of the larger board will respond to having hotels during this game when they weren't incorporated in the past?
We can touch on this. So in terms of having hotels when they weren't incorporated in the past, we believe that this is an additional value add for all of those people that are coming to Regina. We believe that this is also very beneficial for the economy in Regina and the other communities that the games will be held in the future because it does boost that tourism industry.
How sustainable do you think it is for the 2020 games? How do you think it's going to cause a rift amongst sort of the next year's games?
By incorporating that the surplus planning, this will definitely be attainable for future games as well.
As a Saskatchewan Rough Rider season ticket holder, what's the value in charging me another dollar to support the North American Indigenous Games? Because I'm sure the riders just won't turn over that money. It'll be the people sitting in the seats.
Thank you. So what we are looking at is actually developing a partnership with you to have $1 of the existing ticket price allocated toward the games. So it isn't an additional dollar, it's $1 of what's already being paid. And we think that the benefit to you would be that of logo recognition and actual recognition of your commitment to the games. We think that the Rough Riders have that social impact, and this would be a great way to actually spread that influence through that partnership.
The Ministry of the Economy has already contributed through the provincial government's donation $3.5 million. So what's the advantage to either the Ministry of the Economy or the provincial government to go beyond that?
So what we're thinking there is that the Ministry of Economy currently does a lot of work with other non-for-profits, and they do a lot of stuff supporting Indigenous activities in the area. So we felt like a partnership with them, that would be something that would be completely aligned with their goals and something that would enhance their reputation in the community as well. So we felt like there wouldn't be an issue with approaching them for a partnership, and we could see going forward, especially with the outline benefits to the Regina and Saskatchewan community as a whole, that we feel like they would be on board with that.
You've talked in recommendation about raising roughly $2 million in sponsorship. And I want to give you a chance to talk about that analysis.
Yeah, sure. So what we've actually done is, I'll take you to two different slides. The first of these is that the Corporate Partners Program. So actually laying out those levels and approaching different partners at the specific level. So we know you've already approached a few different companies within the industry, and Saskatchewan is great for that, those potential partners in the corporate sector, but actually having those benefits. So the first one lies at the $750K, $275,000, $100,000, and $50,000. And we've actually projected an actual estimate of what number of sponsors you need at each level to actually acquire that $1.9 million in corporate sponsorship that you need to create that the total objective that you're looking to reach. Does that somewhat answer your question?
mentioned this sponsorship package should, highlight the benefits to the corporate sponsorship community. What do you think are the key highlights that the benefits should highlight?
I think the key highlights is opportunities for these corporate sponsors to get involved with your games. And they're also really looking to go beyond profits and create that social impact in the communities that they're working in as well. So these are benefits that will go long beyond the 2014 games.
Just to expand on that, aside though from, say, logo recognition and which is really how you would align yourself, I'm assuming with these games, what are added benefits for someone to donate $750,000, be a platinum sponsor, what else is?
Yeah, I can touch on that. So I think in terms of actually investing dollars in the community, we know that companies have different sorts of initiatives that they invest in. So we think that this definitely builds on that community platform, and not only having that logo recognition, but actually coming out and getting engaged at events. So networking with the athletes, acting as judges, those are benefits that we can look at, and we can definitely form a team to help you out in brainstorming for the benefits to actually create that value out of those dollars.